Polished Professionals, the blog and brand to help you conquer the workaday world with style and poise. I'm Mel, the founder of Polished Professionals, and if you're new to our channel, we're so glad you're here. We hope you hit the subscribe button and the bell so you never miss a show. For those of you returning, thank you so much for coming back. We're so glad you're here. We have our top 4 tips to making sure you disaster-proof any work project, and we have a bonus tip that will really help you on projects you have in the future. We hope you like these 4 tips and our bonus tips. Stay tuned. I don't know about you, but I sometimes never know how to start to tackle a new work project. So maybe the boss calls, it's on Friday, and they say, hey, by Monday morning, we need to have a plan to go over this brand new rollout of a new system, a move of the office, a merger and acquisition, whatever it is, and you are catatonic. You don't know what to do next. Well, with these 4 tips, we're gonna move you from freezing and catatonic mode to really being productive and creating the right team to finish any work project. So what is the first way that we have to make sure you disaster-proof any work project that you're on? Number 1 is understanding the business objectives. And this may seem straightforward, but it is the most critical piece, really, of any project. It's understanding what the business wants to get out of it and probably understanding the why as well. Sometimes you may be in the dark about certain areas, but I would really push the issue of trying to understand the why and the what. Both of those things will help guide you whenever you have any questions along the way as you go forward with rolling out a project. Once you understand those business objectives, really what the business unit is trying to get after, then you can think about setting expectations and really limiting the scope of the work that you're doing. I think the reason we're catatonic often when we get a project is we think it is insurmountable to finish all the requirements in a certain amount of time. But if you understand the objective and then can start breaking that down into smaller chunks, you can set the right expectations and understand the scope that you're going to be able to cover throughout that project. If there needs to be things added, I view it like a new scope of work, something you will add on at the end, but still drive through with the ones that you have set out there, because those are also the business objectives that you know you've clearly identified. A clear scope is really, really important because that will also be the way that you answer any questions that come up in the project as you go throughout the time of trying to develop the plan and then executing on the plan. So if a question comes up about why you're doing this or how we go about getting there, or should we be spending our time doing X, Y, or Z, those kind of questions should all be geared back toward the guidepost of understanding what the strategic objective is of the business unit. If it isn't achieving those things, you're wasting your time. And so having that clear set, that line set from the business unit of what they expect out of this project will really help you answer and spend resources wisely so that people are not wasting their time on things that really will not help your end goals for this project. Tip number 2 for disaster-proofing any work project is to set the right contingencies. And what do I mean by that? Well, I always like to say under promise and over deliver. You've probably heard that before. And this is really what about setting contingencies is. So if you are thinking about a project, make sure you put in some extra time when you're telling the client this is what you're going to be able to deliver and this is when you're going to be able to deliver it. Make sure you set in some time for contingencies. For example, if something is waiting on shipping of something for it to arrive, understand inclement weather. If it's the winter time or if there's a hurricane or anything like that, you may need some added time on that before you get the things you even need to start the project. Or if, for example, there's vacation that people will need to take or time off, or you know you have somebody that has an illness that you want to be on the project team, you really want to set the expectations at the front end of how long it's going to take you to get through a project so that the client can know what to expect and when to expect it. And inevitably, during a project, there will be hiccups that come up along the way. There'll be other priorities that may come up that may become more important than even this project, so you'll have to delay this one. You can only do so much, but allowing yourself to set in these contingencies beforehand and really think them through will help disaster-proof any work project. Tip number 3 to making sure you disaster-proof any work project is, of course, assembling the right team. Now, that is the hardest thing to do as far as I'm concerned, is to get the right people in the room working on this project. The first thing I like to think about when I assemble a team is to think outside the box of your department. So first of all, most companies would say, great, everybody in the tax group is going to help solve this tax problem. Well, that's not always the right way to think about solving a problem if that's the work project you're working on at that time. Often a multifunctional team that really has the skill sets that you need to solve the problem is better than just a departmental team that you might put together. So really think about including other people from outside of your group. So for example, if you happen to be in the tax group, somebody, for example, from risks may be good, somebody from legal may be good, somebody from operations may be good. If you're making decisions for whatever project you're doing, it will be important because inevitably it's likely going to impact everybody else. So having those different points of view, having a different set of skills that isn't just limited to tax really may help you and your team function more efficiently. So just think about getting outside of your initial department in your company and think a little bit more broadly about who are the right team members to assemble to pull into this. The second thing to consider when assembling the right team is you may need some external expertise. So what do I mean by that? For example, if you're thinking about launching a new business, taking your business international, that may be the next step that you're thinking of. You will likely need some international legal advice and some international tax advice, among other things. So really understanding what the scope of the project is, again, will be important because then you can know who to call on. If you don't have that kind of expertise in-house, that would be people that you will want to add to your team in order to ensure that you, one, are addressing all the contingencies that may be out there and that you're not blindsided by things that just really are not in your own wheelhouse or in your company's wheelhouse as a whole. So getting and partnering with the right set of outside experts may be the next key to making sure your right team is assembled for your project. The last step in order to make sure you disaster-proof any work project is clear and constant communication. This is really, really where the rubber meets the road. You have to make sure you are actually spending the time and energy in communicating with what you're finding as you go through each step of a project. There should be somebody that you really assign this task. I think somebody who can compile meeting minute notes, can summarize those, can send those out to each of the stakeholders for any project is a key element of making sure your project is successful. Maybe is that something at the beginning of your project makes the end of the project scope change in some ways, but you don't express that or tell people about that until you're way, way past that. Well, then you've wasted a lot of time and resources in the interim there because you didn't communicate your findings from maybe something that started back at the beginning of the project. So this kind of work is really, really important to make sure that you are communicating with not just the stakeholders, but with also with your team members. So having somebody as the point person for communication, I think, is a key role to making sure that your project is not a disaster. We have one other bonus tip that we think is really important to disaster-proofing any project at work, and that really is a debrief. At the end of the day, you do want to make sure that you think through all the elements of the project, what worked well and what didn't work well. We think a debrief is really a great key to use so that your next project is even better than this one. So don't limit yourself to just getting through this project and checking the box. Do take the time, and this is so hard, to go back and look at what worked and what didn't work. Where did we fail in communication? Where did we fail in scope? Where did we fail in aligning the right resources? Where did we fail in getting the right people on the job? So all of those things are really important to look back, understand what you could have done better, document that, and so that for the next time around, you are ready to go and there will be no hiccups on your next work project. We hope these tips were helpful as you think about embarking on your next work project. Again, if you haven't hit the subscribe button, we hope you hit that below and the bell so you never miss an episode. We are here for you. And if you have any comments or questions, we hope you put them down below as well. Let us know what you want to see more of. Thanks so much for watching.